There are family stories that aren't just about love. They're about deep wounds, where the people closest to you become your greatest enemies. This is the story of a 33-year-old single mom who was brutally kicked out of her childhood home by her own sister, the so-called golden child of the family. Not only was she forced out, but her 5-year-old daughter was left terrified and helpless. Instead of protecting her, their parents turned a blind eye, choosing to side with the baby-carrying sister while abandoning their own daughter and granddaughter. How does a single mom stand tall when the very people who should be her safe haven betray her? Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. Now, get ready to dive into this intense, emotional family drama. This story reveals the heartbreaking secrets behind a family's shattered facade, power struggles, betrayal, and pain. You'll witness a mother's fierce fight to protect her child, a terrified little girl caught in the storm, and a family torn apart by greed and lies. Will you empathize or judge? Watch till the end and share your thoughts down below. From the earliest memories, the household was a battlefield, but no fight was harder to endure than the one fought quietly, invisibly, in the heart of one sister. At 33, as a single mother, she carried scars deeper than anyone else could see, wounds inflicted not by strangers, but by Eva, her younger sister, who wore the mask of the golden child, with all the arrogance and cruelty she could muster. Eva, though younger, was physically stronger and emotionally ruthless. The power imbalance was palpable, not just in size, but in how their parents' eyes gleamed with favoritism whenever Eva spoke or cried, while her sister's complaints faded into dismissive silence. "She's just your little sister," their parents would say, refusing to believe the bruises, the fear, the pleading for help. The tension was suffocating. Every conversation with Eva was a minefield, words twisted, accusations thrown, dominance asserted. The mother's half-hearted attempts at babysitting her niece contrasted with moments when she told her own daughter to simply learn motherhood, felt like salt on an open wound. The sister's selfishness wasn't just an action. It was a calculated emotional siege meant to isolate and intimidate. One night, she sat alone in her small rented room, cradling her sleeping daughter, feeling the crushing weight of betrayal. How could family be the source of such pain? The fear in her daughter's wide eyes when Eva appeared was a silent scream, proof of the unsafe sanctuary she was forced to call home. It wasn't just a fight for space, it was a fight for survival, for dignity, for love that had been weaponized and withheld. Her internal battle blurred with the external one, the heartbreaking realization that the people who should have shielded her were willingly standing by, eyes closed, hands tied by loyalty to the sister who caused the hurt. Yet, from within this storm, a quiet strength began to forge. She knew she could no longer rely on their parents or the household she once called home. This growing resolve marked not an end, but a turning point, a painful but necessary step toward carving out a new life free from toxicity. And so, with a heavy heart but steadfast spirit, she began planning her escape, an escape not just from a house, but from the shadows of a family that had forsaken her. As the walls closed in tighter and the storms of emotional abuse raged louder, the hardest chapter was yet to come, being forced out, fighting to protect her daughter's innocence and reclaiming her life from the ashes of broken trust. We will explore the heart-rending ordeal of eviction from the only home she ever knew, how courage and desperation intertwined as she sought safety for herself and her child amidst overwhelming betrayal. The day her world shattered came without warning. Returning home from work, she found her belongings packed and placed ominously on the front porch. Her 5-year-old daughter sat silently beside the scattered pieces of their life, trembling, not quite understanding, but sensing the cold reality that their safe haven had been taken away. It was her sister Eva, the golden child, who had orchestrated this eviction, with the silent consent, even the active help, of their own parents. Her heart broke watching her daughter's small frame curl up in fear, clinging to her as if she were the only anchor left in a sea of betrayal. The little girl, usually so quiet and obedient, was haunted by the harsh words and threatening stares of her aunt, unable to voice the terror she felt. This moment of helplessness was a gut-wrenching testament. Safety was no longer guaranteed, not even within family walls. The conflict simmered beneath the surface, fueled by layers of resentment and unspoken truths. The parents, once pillars of support, were now shadows hiding behind excuses, choosing to protect Eva while turning a blind eye to the suffering of their daughter and granddaughter. Her mother's hypocrisy stung sharply. The same woman who refused to help during her own pregnancy, now acting as a constant caregiver to the sister who had ruined their lives. Forced to flee, she was thrust into the harsh reality of single motherhood without a home. The search for a new place became a struggle against time, money, and the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her shoulders. Each day was a battle balancing work, house hunting, and protecting her daughter's fragile spirit. She hired a nanny, a kind-hearted middle-aged woman with a son just a few years older than her daughter, who brought a much-needed sense of normalcy, laughter, and companionship to their lives. Late at night, there were moments when she would whisper to her daughter, gently explaining the chaos swirling around them, trying to comfort the child whose innocence had been shattered too soon. She promised safety and love, even if the family they once trusted had failed them. These intimate moments were her sanctuary, a reminder of what was truly worth fighting for. Through the sleepless nights, the fear, and the uncertainty, a fire was kindling within her, a fierce determination to build a new life from the ruins. No longer the fragile girl dominated by her sister's cruelty and her parents' neglect, she was becoming a warrior for her daughter, ready to face whatever storm lay ahead. But escaping the physical house was only the beginning. The emotional scars ran deep, and the hardest battles, the ones fought inside her heart, were just starting. We delve into the painful uncovering of lies and secrets that expose the true face of Eva and the family's deception, pushing her further into isolation but also closer to newfound strength. After the painful eviction, the truth began to unravel slowly, like dark smoke seeping through cracked walls, thick, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. What she had suspected in whispered doubts became a devastating reality. Eva was not the victim the family painted her to be, but the architect of their downfall. The golden child who everyone idolized was living a web of lies, having betrayed her own husband, hiding the truth from their parents, and draining the family's resources with reckless abandon. The revelation hit like a tidal wave. She learned from her parents, amidst tears and hushed voices, that Eva's husband had kicked her out after discovering her infidelity. The much-touted transfer to the States and the company's generous accommodation had been a sham, a facade to mask a crumbling marriage and impending divorce. The child Eva carried wasn't even her husband's. Her parents' faces fallen, guilty yet trapped by their own denial, only deepened the wound. This betrayal was more than personal, it was a fracture in the family's foundation. While Eva's deceit was unveiled, the hardest pang was the realization that her parents had chosen blind loyalty over justice. They had spent their dwindling savings on Eva's medical bills, shielding her and her lies, turning a deaf ear to the cries of their other daughter and granddaughter. The hypocrisy stung deeply, cutting through every memory of support she had hoped for. Her emotions churned violently, rage tangled with heartbreak, bitterness mixed with sorrow. To be betrayed not only by a sister, but by the guardians who should have protected her, left her aching with a profound loneliness. Every unanswered call, every silent denial from her parents felt like a dagger twisting deeper. In this whirlwind of exposure, new figures emerged, a sympathetic colleague who stood by her side, a neighbor who shared similar stories of family betrayal, and even an old friend who advised her on standing firm and reclaiming her dignity. These allies became lifelines, proof that she was not alone despite the family's fracturing. Even as the world she knew crumbled, something inside her hardened, not into bitterness, but into clarity and purpose. The tumultuous inner battle between wanting forgiveness and demanding accountability began to shift definitively toward self-preservation and strength. Her story was no longer just about surviving the toxic family environment. It was about confronting painful truths, demanding respect, and reclaiming her power. Yet the journey was far from over. The upcoming challenge loomed large, a bold proposal to buy back the family home, a final attempt to salvage what remained of her broken past, but on her own terms. We will witness her courageous, but deeply conflicted, step toward reclaiming stability and the family's surprising response to that ultimatum. The stakes have never been higher. Stay with us as this family drama unfolds further, peeling back layers of love, betrayal, and the fight for justice. When the weight of her family's collapse pressed hardest, she made a decision born of painful clarity and fierce resolve. Despite the wounds inflicted by her sister Eva and the cold shoulders of her parents, she stepped forward with a proposition that stunned even herself and, ultimately, the family she once called hers. Using the recent promotion at work and the raise she had earned through relentless effort, she offered to buy the family home, the very place that had become both a battleground and a symbol of fractured love. But her terms were clear and unyielding. She would take on the mortgage, relieve their financial burden, and in exchange, she wanted the house transferred to her name. Most importantly, she insisted that Eva and her child could no longer live there, to protect herself and her daughter from further harm. This was not just a business proposal, it was a statement of boundaries, a demand for respect, and a declaration of independence. She wasn't simply buying a house, she was reclaiming her peace. But when she laid her offer before her parents, the response was silence thick with emotion, and then rejection. The very people who had allowed Eva to destroy her sense of home refused to sever ties with the golden child. To them, the bond of blood outweighed the cruelty and chaos Eva brought. The house, already slipping from their grasp through missed payments and mounting debts, became a battlefield of loyalty and denial. Her father's silence spoke volumes. Her mother's hesitation, the avoided phone calls, the postponed conversations, each was a testament to the impossible choices tangled in love, guilt, and family loyalty. They preferred to risk losing the home rather than face the painful choice of siding with their elder daughter. The rejection cut deep, a fresh wound on the long list of betrayals. Inside, she wrestled with an ache that transcended disappointment, a cocktail of anger, grief, and a fierce determination not to be broken again. This refusal was a turning point, forcing her to finally sever the remaining threads binding her to a family that chose to turn away. Yet, amidst this storm, a new clarity emerged. If they wouldn't save the home, she would build her own life elsewhere, a home filled not with conflict and fear, but with love and safety for her daughter. Her resolve hardened like tempered steel. She had made her offer, drawn her boundary. Now it was time to step fully into the life she deserved. From here, we will follow her journey into independence and healing as she carves out a new beginning. Finding strength in solitude, stability in her own home, and joy in the little milestones with her daughter. The fight isn't over, but a new chapter has begun. After the storm of betrayal and heartbreak, she stepped into a new world, one carved by her own hands, fueled by fierce determination and the unwavering love for her daughter. This was not just about finding a roof over their heads. It was about reclaiming dignity, forging stability, and nurturing a sanctuary where trust and peace could blossom once again. Living away from the toxic shadows of her sister and the fractured family, she rented a modest home within reach of her workplace and her daughter's school. The transition was anything but easy. Late nights balancing demanding work hours and motherly duties, the constant worry of making ends meet, and the haunting echoes of past wounds. Yet in these challenges, she found a new kind of strength. One that came from knowing she was finally protecting her daughter, the light of her life, from the darkness that had enveloped their family. A kind-hearted nanny entered their lives, a woman seasoned with experience and warmth, who brought laughter and friendship to her daughter. The nanny's son, close in age to her little girl, became a playmate and a source of comfort. These small moments of normalcy, shared giggles, school pickups, bedtime stories, slowly stitched a delicate fabric of joy over the scars of the past. Her daughter's smile began to return, each milestone celebrated with pride and hope. The little girl, though once trembling with fear, started to blossom in this new environment, reminding her mother daily why she had fought so hard. Each step forward was a quiet victory, but the emotional battle was far from over. She wrestled with the grief of lost family connections, the sting of abandonment, and the desire for healing that seemed both distant and necessary. Conversations with trusted friends and supportive colleagues helped her process the pain, turning loneliness into resilience. This new chapter was not just survival, it was a renaissance of self, of motherhood, and of hope. No longer defined by the toxicity she escaped, she was now a beacon of strength for her daughter and for herself, walking a path toward peace forged from fire. We'll glimpse the profound lessons born from heartbreak, the power of standing tall, embracing independence, and choosing love in the face of betrayal. Stay tuned for the concluding chapter that reveals how she found her voice and her future beyond the shadows of her past. As the dust settled on the wreckage of her family ties, she found herself standing at a crossroads, not merely as a survivor, but as a woman transformed by hardship. The years of betrayal, abandonment, and heartache had carved deep wounds, yet from those very wounds sprang an unbreakable resilience and fierce self-respect. This was more than a story of pain. It was a testimony to the human spirit's capacity to heal and rise again. She learned, often painfully, that family doesn't always mean unconditional love. Sometimes, those blood ties become chains, holding us back or dragging us into darkness. But breaking free, no matter how excruciating, was her first act of courage, a declaration that she would no longer accept being diminished or dismissed. With every setback, her resolve grew stronger, fueled by a love that refused to be broken. The love for her daughter. The road to rebuilding was not walked alone. Along the way, unexpected allies, friends who became chosen family, compassionate coworkers, and even strangers who shared their wisdom, helped her rediscover trust and belonging. These new connections were lifelines, proving that home is not just a place, but the people who truly see and support you. Her story echoes a vital lesson for anyone facing similar darkness. Your worth is not defined by who turns away, but by your courage to stand tall and fight for your peace. Self-respect is a shield, resilience a sword, and together they carve a path through even the deepest betrayals. The internal battles between hope and despair, forgiveness and boundary setting, were ongoing, yet each day she grew stronger in her truth. Her daughter, once frightened and silent, now laughed freely and embraced the love her mother fiercely protected. Watching her grow became the ultimate redemption, a living proof that even from the harshest storms, new life and happiness could emerge. As the shadows of the past slowly faded, her vision sharpened, not just to survive, but to thrive. To build a future where respect, love, and peace defined her home. The scars remained, reminders of the journey, but they no longer dictated her story. This journey is an inspiration, a testament to strength born from suffering and the unyielding power of self-worth. It's a call to anyone trapped in toxic ties. You have the power to reclaim your life. Thank you for following this poignant family saga. We invite you to share your thoughts and stories in the comments, because every voice matters and every story deserves to be heard. Together, we find strength, healing, and hope.